going on, guys? Welcome to another episode of Bro History. It's Henry Zamota, Danny Abdel-Jabbar. What is going on, my friend? Happy New Year.
Happy New Year to you. Happy New Decade.
Last time I spoke with you, it was last decade.
Oh, my God.
How many times have you heard that joke today?
None, because I've been a really bad human and I've been in my room all day.
Oh, okay. Well, I should have been that way as well. Sorry we missed. Usually our schedule is always on Thursday, but this one's coming out a day late. As always, I've been fighting off a lingering flu. So here's my problem, and I think you can relate to this. Once winter comes, I'm just consistently kind of sick, but I'm always fighting off the cold. And I know I'm beating on deaf eardrums right now, and I'm sure you're tired of hearing this, but yesterday, damn, I got a fever. Holy shit. And it was honestly because of New Year's Eve. Obviously, I went out drinking on New Year's Eve, as Danny as well. I believe that you were quite hungover the next day as well.
I was totally hungover. A whole bottle of rum really didn't help me.
Whole bottle of rum. I had about, I don't know how many drinks I had. However, all that combined, I ended up getting a big fever. And have you ever seen the movie Walk Hard?
No.
Oh, with John C. Reilly from Step Brothers?
No.
Walk Hard?
Yeah,
it's a parody. It's a parody on the Johnny Cash movie.
Oh, okay.
And there's a scene where he goes to rehab, and he's like, oh, I'm so hot. And like, get him blankets, get him more blankets. And then he's like, oh, I'm so cold. It's like, now he needs less blankets. And then he's like, I'm hot and I'm cold. He's like, doctor, now he needs more blankets and less blankets. And the doctor's like, I'm afraid you're right. That's what I was like last.
Is that how you're feeling yesterday?
That's how I was feeling yesterday. So we had to skip. But honestly, probably a blessing in disguise, because there was so much news that happened over the past couple of days. There's no way that we would have been able to keep up with everything. And some of you guys have actually been reaching out to me and giving me some really good insight on the situation. Obviously, I guess we'll just jump right into it. What's going on in Iraq?
Yep, what's going on?
So, as you all probably know, and I'm sure you're all probably very aware that the U.S. Embassy was attacked in Baghdad, which is pretty crazy. It stirs up a lot of historic images in recent history as well. One being Benghazi, where you see a bunch of people on Facebook. They're like, "Oh yeah, Trump prevented Benghazi. Clinton."
Right.
One of those. You're hearing that, but then you're also. My first thought is when I saw this, and Danny, give us just a quick paraphrase of exactly what happened before we jump right into it.
Yeah, for sure. So last Friday, the K-1 airbase in Iraq, which is a U.S. airbase, was attacked by rocket fire. I think it was about 30 rockets were fired into the airbase. It killed one American contractor and injured a couple others. And nobody claimed responsibility for that particular rocket attack, though the U.S. blamed Iran or Iranian-backed militias in Iraq, and that's where it gets a little messy. And in response to those rocket attacks, we decided to bomb the shit out of a group called Kata'ib Hezbollah, who is a Iraqi militia that is allied with the government, but that might have loose ties with Iran because they might have been basically trained by the Iran Quds forces. And in response to that attack, which killed 25 of their people and injured about 50 others, they decided, this particular fighting force decided to have a little protest. So they basically walked right up to the embassy, and there was, I don't know, thousands of them. I didn't get an approximate count there, but there was a whole lot of people, and they started making a lot of noise, and they tried battering down some doors. They lit a fire. They burned a bunch of shit. There's some areas of the embassy that was pretty badly burned, but nobody was hurt. And yeah, that's pretty much the TLDR of what happened. The rest is, well, the devil's in the details, as you can say. So we're going to break that down a bit further.
So the first thing that I thought when this was going on, when I got my Reuters update, I thought when I saw what was happening in the green zone, I started thinking of what happened in Tehran over 40 years ago. And furthermore, I'm talking about the Iranian Revolution.
Right.
And furthermore, Trump, of course, he draws that parallel even further by blaming everything on Iran. I think the first tweet I saw from Trump on this was, Iran is orchestrating an attack on the U.S. embassy in Iraq. So, of course, Trump, I don't think, has I think he's quite without context when it comes to a lot of the things that are going on in the Middle East. And
certainly
if you have common sense, the attack on the embassy most likely wasn't orchestrated by Iran, because they would probably take credit for it if they did.
Yep.
It was a reaction to what happened only a few days prior, and that was when the U.S. killed about 25 and injured 50 others. As you said, members of the Iraqi Shiite militia named Kata'ib Hezbollah. And yes, Kata'ib Hezbollah is a pro-Iraqi militia, which is allied with the government. They're fighting ISIS. So the connection they have with Iran is that they were trained by the Iranian Quds Force. And the Iranian Quds Force is basically like the Iranian Green Berets. So they go around the Middle East and they train Shiite militias. And they trained Hezbollah. They trained a lot of Shiite militias, and this is one of those groups that was trained by the Quds forces, or has a relationship with the Quds force. Like, it would almost be like during the Vietnam War, South Korean soldiers attacked a Russian embassy or something, or something like that, or like Russia bombed a South Korean, South Vietnamese position or something like that. So that's where but there's no direct war, you know what I mean? Like, there's not an active war going on within Iraq. There's only civil unrest. So that's where the complications really arise. And, they're said to be in retaliation of the rocket fires 2 days earlier at the Iraqi naval base. But the problems that you have right now is that if you're an Iraqi on the ground, you're going to see this response as disproportionate as far as the casualties go. And obviously, it's a tragedy that somebody died over there. And, I would like to know exactly what happened. Right. But we don't know exactly what happened.
Right. And I want to unpack that, because that's an important part. When the rocket attack on the K-1 Air Force Base happened last Friday, the Iraqi military and the Iraqi government was said to have been conducting an investigation about it, like to find out who did it, what happened, and to bolster up security, which is the normal and natural response. Unfortunately, the Iraqi government is either woefully inept or complicit in it, because nothing really came out of it. One thing that you'll notice is that when you research that initial attack that sparked our response, there's not video of it. There's not pictures. There's not a whole lot of news stories happening around about it. And nobody has taken responsibility for it, which is the curious part, right? So nobody actually said, hey, we did it. Now, I want to make this very clear. I'm not saying that the attack didn't happen. I'm actually very certain that there was a rocket attack in the K-1 Air Force Base. My point, though, is that there wasn't a whole lot of overwhelming evidence that any one group had done it. And our response to that, which, looking at it from our perspective, we can't just allow people to rocket attack us, unbeknownst to us. We have to be able to defend ourselves.
Lay the hammer.
Yeah. Let's be real.
America,
that is a very natural
response.
response. It's a natural response to want to do something about it, especially because someone was killed, right? Now, I think this is where it gets fucked up. Like
Terrorist, your days are through, because now you have to answer through America. Fuck yeah.
Love that movie.
So kiss my balls and suck on my ass, America. That movie is very funny.
Yeah. But I mean, that's kind of the point, though, right? It's like,
darker.
okay, so somebody hit us, right? And then we decide, okay, well, we got to retaliate. And so we blamed Iran. But like Iran's not in Iraq. Iran and Iraq are two separate countries, right? They don't have forces there, right? So we just hit someone that was probably Iran, according to our intelligence.
It probably was Iran. I mean, I'm not trying to like say Iran wasn't.
Right. I mean, it
was not heavily. This wasn't like a militia that was heavily influenced by Iran. I mean, we just did an episode a couple of weeks ago on how much influence Iran had within Iraq.
That's right.
So,
so like they have a presence there.
Absolutely, they're an influence. They're an Iranian proxy. However,
right. But it's like they just kind of picked one. I feel like. I mean, maybe they had the intelligence for it. But my point, though, is if you're like you said, if you are an Iraqi citizen and you're on the ground and you get presented this evidence and you see, okay, on Friday there was a rocket attack on a U.S. soil. Nobody took responsibility for it. There are no videos. There's no, whatever. One person died, and then a couple days later, we carry out, heavy airstrikes on, Kata'ib Hezbollah, who may or may not have done it. There's plenty of video. Lots of people died. Many more were injured. So like you start thinking about it as an Iraqi on the ground, and you're like, well, that's kind of fucked up. It seems indiscriminate in a certain respect. It definitely seems disproportionate, as you say. So this is what sparked this I don't know what you want to call it, this protest, this aggression against the U.S. Embassy.
This riot. It's riot within the embassy. I think that's probably the best way to describe it.
Riot. Yeah.
I'm going to mute myself because there's a siren going on.
You bet. So that's kind of what sparked this riot. And then, there's a lot of video of the riot. It was heavily publicized. There's film reporters like watching this shit take place. And one thing that I noticed that was interesting about this that I want to like separate from the Benghazi situation, because you're going to get a lot of these parallels being drawn, and we're certainly going to unpack that some more. But these folks, from the video and from the pictures that we're seeing, weren't armed. They certainly had intent to riot and destroy some shit.
They had incendiary weapons.
Well,
molten cocktails,
like alcohol.
So
and
it was 100% a dangerous.
Lighter,
they weren't. It was 100% a dangerous situation for the guys
certainly,
there.
Yeah, it wasn't a walk in the park. This isn't like Occupy Wall Street here. This was definitely a riot. But they weren't armed, and what I mean by armed specifically is you don't see them with guns.
They weren't coming in, and they weren't. It wasn't Benghazi, as in they didn't take out. They brutally murdered Ambassador Stevens and Benghazi. They brutally murdered him.
Right, and
they raped them. They killed them. So
yeah.
nothing like that happened.
And and to be clear, nothing like that could have happened because they didn't bring guns. Right? They weren't intending to shoot the place up. They just wanted to cause a ruckus, break some shit, throw some stones, light some fires, send a message. And that's literally what, these people said that they were there for. They wanted to send a message to the United States, and they had demands. Among those demands, the forefront was that the United States get out, right? Again, not sticking up for them. I don't think that this was justified at all, but there's many big contextual differences between this situation here in Iraq and the embassy in Iraq, in Baghdad, and in Benghazi. And I definitely think we should probably unpack that, because this is going to be the talking point that you're going to hear in the mainstream media and probably among, your friends that aren't very
this is what you're going to hear from your conservative right-wing friends.
Yeah.
On Facebook, who I just saw a ridiculous Facebook meme because I have a lot of right-wing friends on Facebook, and this ridiculous meme popped up. It's like, Michelle Obama, those kids aren't hers. Like, I was like, what? I was like, this is ridiculous. But nobody on earth who has more than a brain cell left in their head would actually believe that. Obviously, they know it's like a troll thing, probably like a random generator thing. But all right, we digress. So I guess the major differences between the Benghazi and the Baghdad thing is that, I mean, both the events, they were around the same time as far as when the backup came. The meme that you're kind of seeing right now is that, you know, Trump, it took Clinton, took Hillary Clinton, and I hate, I'm not a fan of Hillary Clinton, by the way, if this is the first time that you're listening right now. And I think there's a lot of fucked up things that went on in Benghazi. However, this is just like the reality of the situation. So
right,
Hillary
like I
Clinton,
saw the one meme that said, you know, it took Hillary Clinton 13 hours to get Marines over there. It took Trump 13 minutes. And I'm like, really though? So let's unpack that, because I think that's, you know, those timelines don't make sense.
So I believe
from the memeverse.
So the insight that I heard was that both events occurred in 12 hours before both events occurred 12 hours before military backup came. Right. So the timelines are pretty similar. Now, the reason why is because Baghdad is much more fortified than Benghazi. It's a larger embassy.
Yeah, this compound is 100 acres. It's 100 acres large. It's massive, big walls, really heavily fortified.
Benghazi was not an embassy. It was a smaller consulate.
Right. So not heavily fortified as this one was.
The military that Trump ordered to come into the Middle East, they weren't there to come save the people at the embassy. It's not their mandate to protect State Department facilities or really protect civilian facilities. Those guys, I think they are going over to Kuwait, if I'm not mistaken. Mm-hmm. And those Marines that did come are special purpose Marines, so they're meant to protect embassies that are under extra threat. Right. So
they're a threat response force, basically. Yeah.
So it wasn't like Trump. Oh, we'll send in my Trump specialized Neil SEAL team that Obama was too pussy to use.
Right. I mean, these people were already there to. That's. I mean, that is what it comes down to when you look at the memes. You know,
Obama was too pussy to use this one. He was too pussy to call Rambo.
But that's not what happened. It was 100 Marines who are special purpose.
Only Trump will call John Cena to save the day. But that's not exactly what happened. And I'm not even trying to say this as a hit on Trump. I'm just trying to clear up. We're trying to clear up the situation right there, because there's a lot
there's a lot of bullshit going on right now.
Yeah, there's a lot of bullshit, and obviously most of the bullshit is just all partisan. Right. Either right wing or left wing partisan stuff, and we try to cut through the bullshit there. But yeah, it was it's an entirely different situation. I will add that I think the Marines did a great job, because
definitely
no one got hurt. They didn't kill anyone, which is great, because if there was a death, if they killed one of those rioters, and obviously you're going to riot on an embassy, you're taking your life into God's hands right there.
Yeah. I mean, I thought that watching those guys
escalate the situation.
If you saw did you see those videos of the guys, and they basically made a makeshift battering ram, and they're hitting the door, and the door is very well constructed. You'd need a bomb or some shit like that to take this thing off. But the thing that I was thinking to myself was there's nobody there with guns, and on the other side of it, you can see through the windows. On the other side is I don't know, 10 Marines or something like that were stationed there in the first place. With plenty of guns. My thought was just all right, so what if you got through the door? Now what? You're literally going to die. They had no means of protecting themselves. Those battering rams, those Molotov cocktails, that wasn't going to save them. So they, again, I don't condone this actions, but the intentions here are completely different, in my opinion, from the attack on Benghazi. The intentions on the attack in Benghazi, they were out for blood. They wanted to kill people, and they came armed to the teeth to do so. It was a completely different situation.
And there was violence. There was a lot of civil unrest, and there was warnings that was going to happen in the first place. Now, the scandal with Benghazi is that the Obama administration, they lied and said that riot was over some film that made fun of Muhammad. I'm just going to keep the sirens in because, we're talking about riots right now. So why not just have the ambience? And we're recording a little bit earlier than usual. So the sirens are a little bit more crazy. But yeah, so it's like evacuation, come, evacuation, come.
What's funny is that I actually think that these sirens are uncharacteristic of what happened in the embassy because, there was the Iraqi military and the Iraqi government were almost powerless to like prevent this or disperse the crowds. It took them a long fucking time to get their forces in there. I think they just got there today, like a couple hours ago, which is nuts. And it just kind of shows how inept they are and or complicit. It might totally just be that they were like, all right, whatever. Because one thing that was really interesting about this is that, there are several checkpoints leading up to the embassy that you have to cross. And these folks were able to just literally walk straight through the checkpoints unimpeded, completely unimpeded. So again, if their intent was they wanted blood and they wanted to kill people and they came armed to the teeth, it would have been a much, much different situation, I think, than what we saw. Not underscoring what happened, the destruction that they caused, and the scare that they gave was definitely worth noting. Thankfully, no one got hurt. But, again, the Iraqi military is completely inept to stop this from happening, which does raise a couple of eyebrows and really makes it think about, whether or not it makes sense to keep an embassy there or whether it makes sense to keep any presence whatsoever there. Because if they really wanted to throw down and they really were out for blood, it would have been kind of crazy.
Well, do you know why the Iranians went after the embassy during the Iranian Revolution?
I don't. Enlighten me.
Because it was a CIA headquarters for all the CIA's Eastern operations. So they were looking for evidence that the CIA overthrew Mossadegh in the 50s.
Which
they found. Which they found. Because during the Iranian Revolution, so they stormed the embassy, they took hostages, and the CIA officers there, they started shredding. They had these shredders, and they started throwing all these documents and all these files, all the proof of a lot of the illegal activity or all the shady stuff that they were doing. So they were shredding all that information, and then the Iranian protesters, the student protesters, they went to some local elementary schools and they took all the shavings of what was put in the shredder, and they were like, "Hey kids, do you like puzzles?"
Oh, Jesus.
Yeah. So a lot of times embassies are used to spy on other countries. That's the point I'm trying to make. Mm-hmm. So
I mean, it's literally like sanctioned spying. That's what diplomats are.
Yeah, it's basically sanctioned spying. So, I mean, why the concept of an embassy is a little outdated when you think of, because we're very, very connected in today's world. So,
right, like
that's the purpose of an embassy.
We could just send them an email or some shit,
The embassy in Syria, State Department facilities were procuring weapons to give the Syrian rebels in Syria. These embassies are not like are on good faith missions. They're there to spy. So,
well,
it's not.
Right, let's give a little bit more credit to embassies around the world. They do de-escalate a lot of shit, and when used properly, I think that they can be a force for good. But the point is that there's always the opportunity to spy when you have something like this. So it's never an untainted effort. But I don't want to throw too much mud at diplomacy. I think having diplomats is a good idea.
I think having it needs to be diplomacy is not launching rockets and killing citizens of a country on their soil. That's diplomacy is holding restraint. But you see, when you occupy another country and you have forces there, all those rules go out the window. Anything can happen because the soldiers that are there, even if it's not in time of a hot war, then they're still always in danger, especially in a place like the Middle East, especially Iraq, that has just gone through 3 different civil wars in the past. I mean, 4 major wars in the past 40 years, really, when you think about it. it's a dangerous place to be. Now, what was the point I was going to make? So I think the most important thing to really take note, though, is, like who the U.S. killed. They were trained by the Quds Force. They definitely had Iranian connections. And The Intercept just had this big piece that they released a couple of weeks ago that really just highlighted the Iranian influence within Iraq. All that happened after Iraq War in 2003.
Right.
When the neoconservatives, when George Bush Cheney and the rest of the neoconservative gang, when they invaded Iraq, they handed over Iraq, which is a majority Shia country, to the Iranians. Like, what do you think is going to happen? Like, who would have thought Iran's allies ended up getting into power in Iraq when especially it was Iraqi exiles within who are living in Iran who were, trying to spearhead a regime change within Iraq. So, which are now really, I think it's a pretty safe speculation that those Iraqi agents like Chabali were definitely double agents for Iran. So, the U.S. handed over Iran on a silver platter. Handed Iraq over to Iran on a silver platter. Because all these exiles that were removed during the Iraq-Iran war in the 1980s, who fled to Iran because Saddam Hussein was like, all right, like all these influential Shiites, I got to get them out of here because they're going to be more loyal to a Shiite. They're the ones who ended up taking power. The Dawa Party, the Supreme Council for the Islamic Revolution in Iraq, ended up getting into power. So now the United States is trying to reverse the outcome of the Iraq war. And it's
kind of poorly, if you ask me.
It's kind of poorly, if you ask me. And what's really funny is that you actually have a majority Shiite population protesting the Iranian embassy as well. You have Mahdi, who is a Shiite chauvinist who is resigning from power. Right. You tend to think that that's the direction that you would want the country to go in if you're trying to remove Iranian influence within the country. So why don't you keep a low profile? You don't launch any missiles within the country, and you kind of let the problem take care of itself. Right. Because as much as I don't want intervention, I'm not going to sit here and pretend that Iran's is a enlightened government. I mean, they're a pretty terrible government. They're pretty shitty themselves. They're a bully state themselves.
So basically, don't give the Iraqi people any reason to side with them for any reason.
But I think that you really have to look back at history and say, all right, how did we get here in the first place? These Iranians gained influence because of our military escapades, and now we're just making that more likely to happen.
All right, so maybe we can just put a nail in the Benghazi connection in the coffin there, and then we can kind of move on and talk about war more broadly. So, what do you got to say about this connection with Benghazi?
There's not a connection with Benghazi. That's pretty simple. There's not really there's not too many similarities between Benghazi at all. So that's my connection. That's it. There's not too much that's similar about Benghazi. Trump didn't do something miraculous. He didn't push some button in the Oval. He didn't get the football and press some magic button that had the super squad of Marines go and save the day. That's not what happened. It just died down on its own. And a lot of that stuff that you see is bullshit. That's the nail in the coffin.
Cool. So, with that, maybe we can kind of talk a little bit about, war in general and how that pans out for, the 2020 election. And I know that's something that you wanted to talk about and kind of give some historical context to, because, it seems like a lot of these, decisions that we're making in the Middle East, specifically in Iraq, sometimes in Syria, things like that, but posturing against Iran in general, has us, at least to the mainstream media, on a collision course for war. So let's play along for a minute. with that narrative and say, we do get into a conflict. Now, barring, talking about how ridiculously brutal that war would be, what do you think, the situation would be on the, on the home front here domestically, if some kind of war or, escalation, some kind of conflict happens, in the Middle East, specifically against Iran? How do you think that plays out? So
foreign policy can always be an important issue if it's a disastrous foreign policy when it comes to an election. Now, sometimes you see some big shifts. Now, if you just go back within history over the past 70 years, the Korean War largely contributed to Harry Truman's defeat in the New Hampshire primary and his ultimate decision not to run in 1952. Lyndon Johnson saw his party shattered after the Tet Offensive in 1968 in the Vietnam War, when that war ended up going poorly. Jimmy Carter's response to the seizure of U.S. hostages in Iran consumed his presidency and consumed the last year of his presidency, and really was one of the factors that led to Ronald Reagan being elected. So foreign policy issues are definitely important when it comes to a presidential election, especially ones that are seen as obviously kind of stupid. Now, this is Jenga by all accords. Now, Trump is playing a very unsafe game. All he has to do, I'm not going to say all he has to do, but getting into an unpopular war in the Middle East, because the American public does not want this. The American public does not want to send more soldiers into Iraq or Iran, or they don't want to go to war anywhere. There's a small kind of fringe base that wants to do it, and it's not the average American, right wing or left wing. They may want to posture against Russia and virtue signal sometimes, but no one wants to have these influx of stories of a truck full of soldiers dying in the desert in Iraq or in the mountains of Iran or in the Strait of Hormuz. No one wants to see that. Everyone rather see a lot more videos of soldiers being greeted by their dogs and their family coming back home. Now, this is Jenga. He's taking out pieces, and let it be that he has already had a very unstable. He walked into an unstable Middle Eastern policy. Every president really walked into an unstable Middle Eastern policy. That's definitely heightened since 2003 when George W. Bush decided to destroy the society in Iraq, which filtered and which tailed off into Syria. But if there's an escalation in this war, it could be bad. He's only going to be now, but he's also in a difficult situation because his base that's supporting him, that kind of like conservative Inc. type base, that's it's all about that the type of guys or type of people who are really excited when John Bolton became national security advisor.
Yeah.
That type of base.
And how he's like suddenly becoming the hero in this whole situation, trying to like calm shit down. You notice that?
And of course,
it's so weird.
The Israeli lobby, the Israeli influence, they're not, they want there to be a constant level of kind of low intensity warfare. And you can even argue a full out war there. But if this war escalates, it's going to be a lot worse than any war that we fought there. Just look at the terrain in Iran. If a war would spill in Iran, just look at the mountainous terrain there. It's much bigger than Iraq, and anyone stationed within Iraq would be in complete danger as well. Just because, as we see, there's Shiite militias that are willing to be incredibly hostile to American soldiers if that moment came to be. So, I think that anything less. I mean, I'm not advocating this at all, but I remember listening to a talk show host named Michael Savage before. Mm-hmm. I don't know if you know Michael Savage, but Michael Savage, he was suggesting that the United States just carpet bomb the entire Middle East and just say, okay, let's just go, because they're all Muslims. That was his suggestion, and that is less fringe than you think. To be completely honest, to do something like that, just carpet bomb the rest of the Middle East. Any type of military action that takes place there is going to cause a direct response, and it's going to cycle into a full-scale war. It's impossible there's already too much shit that's gone down to prevent that. I don't think the U.S. can do anything to prevent a school. If people start shooting at each other, it's done. That there's going to be war. Now, Trump, I sincerely thinks he doesn't want to get into a war. He campaigned on not getting out of these stupid wars in the Middle East, and I sincerely think he doesn't want to get into a costly war where there's a lot of debt, a lot of casualties, because if there's a war with Iran, it's going to be over 10,000 dead American soldiers. He doesn't want that, but I think he's utterly without context.
I believe you that he doesn't want that for like political reasons and also just for human reasons. Like, as much as I don't like Trump, I totally don't think that he's, an idiot and, an evil person. In that respect, I definitely agree that he definitely doesn't want to get into a war. But at the same time, he has like this Jekyll and Hyde situation on Twitter, right? Because recently he on the 31st, he tweeted a million things about this whole situation. But the one that stuck out to me was, and I'm going to quote him, "Iran will be held fully responsible for lives lost or damage incurred at any of our facilities. They will pay a very big price," all caps. "This is not a warning. It is a threat. Happy New Year." So like I get you, dude. It would be terrible if something happened. And do I believe that he wants to get into a war? No. But he tends to say and do dumb shit. And I'm worried that, at a certain juncture, the dumb shit that he and his administration does, on and offline, to be clear, will just escalate into something that turns into a conflict. And I feel like we keep getting closer and closer to that,
No one ever told him. I don't think anyone sat down and gave him a real explanation, or if someone did give him a real explanation of what actually happened, why Iran has so much influence within that region. He forgot all of it, or he didn't really listen to it. He kind of checked out during that class. I think it's important also to note that the U.S. funded these Shiite militias during the Iraq War to go after Sunni insurgencies. The Sunni insurgents during the Iraq War, those were the largest killers of American soldiers. And by tilting the balance of power into the hands of the Shiites, that meant tilting the power out of our allies, the Saudis and Israelis. So even King Fahd was upset with that. I think King Fahd doesn't want a full-out war there. I mean, not King Fahd, he's dead. I don't think Saudi Arabia wants to go into a full-out war right now because they're vulnerable. Saudi Arabia, if you're looking at Saudi Arabia right now, they're they understand their vulnerability. I think Mohammed bin Salman has kind of been checked over the past 2 years with his scandal with Jamal Khashoggi and disastrous war in Yemen. I think he's finally coming back down to reality and understands that, hey, there's been Saudi kings that have been killed before, assassinated before. Maybe that can happen to me. Or there could be some type of coup with religious fanatics or what. But I think that they even want to calm down on this, because I honestly still think that if you want to say Iran hit that oil processing facility or if the Houthis hit that oil processing facility, either way, they're still really vulnerable. So
somebody hit it.
Somebody hit and they weren't friends with the Saudis, and they were most likely Shiite. So I think that they understand that this needs to calm down. Qatar has normal relationships with Iran. Turkey has kind of normal relationships with Iran. They're not completely normal, but they talk, and they're not.
They're not fighting each other.
They're not like the U.S., who's constantly condemning them, even though Turkey and Iran may be on different sides in some areas, like
Syria.
For example, they're on different sides in Syria, but they're on the same side in Libya right now.
Right.
Because they both have sympathies to Muslim Brotherhood organizations. Now, it's an interesting dynamic, but some countries are allied with it. I mean, let's look at the U.S. foreign policy within Iraq and Syria. As of today, the U.S. was allied with these Shiite militias when they were fighting ISIS in Iraq, and they were enemies with them in Syria. So, countries are typically, in this day of age, and probably throughout all of history, countries ally with different forces or countries because of their national interest rather than some blind loyalty to them. And I think I think Trump needs to. I mean, there's no change in him at this point. He's not going to change his mind on what he does. Like, the guy's too old and he's too stuck in his way, and he's obviously pretty stubborn. I think what you're going to see over the next year or so is that you're going to see this kind of just go in waves. So remember when the Iranians knocked out that drone and Trump called off an airstrike in the last 10 minutes. And he's
but
like,
not before ranting on Twitter about how he's going to do something about
I
it.
spared their lives. It was
Right.
too much to cause a war over that. And apparently there's been some leaks of him talking, like kind of venting and saying, like, there's people who really want me to go to war and it's sick. So I think
I give him credit for that.
He's in a kind of a political level because, you know, he was really backed by a lot of like hardcore Zionist elements like Sheldon Adelson, and he wants to. I just look at with him and Benjamin Netanyahu, like there's no difference between the Likud party and the Republican Party in the United States at this point. Like you don't know where one ends and the other begins. He tries to appease them while taking that to the limits without going to war, and eventually, I mean, maybe it won't. Maybe it will just be a lot of low-level escalations like this, where there's like almost kind of like that event can spark off a war. Like there's almost that assassination, and there's almost that Archduke Ferdinand moment.
I was just going to say that, man. I feel like there's the fucked up part is that I feel like that there are people who are waiting for that Archduke Ferdinand moment to just go to war. Like you said, there was people whispering in Trump's ear during that drone downing. You know, when Iran downed one of our drones, there's people whispering in his ear like, "Yo, we gotta go, we gotta go, we gotta do it now." You know, and every instant that we have like these just keeps putting us closer and closer. It's parabolic, right? You know, like, will we ever get there? I'm not certain, and I certainly hope not. But I don't know. Somebody needs to just take his Twitter away.
I know. Well, people have been saying that for a very long time now. Do you know what's a really ironic thing about Gavrilo Princip and that assassination is that, you know, they missed him at first. He got away, and they missed the Archduke, and he accidentally met him on another street that he wasn't planning on going. They like pushed back the car that he was in, and he got his second chance and took him out then. But like, you know, they thought they missed him, and then he did get him. Who knows if there was another? It was really bad there in the Balkans regions and with Serbian nationalism and all the shit that was going on within the Austro-Hungarian Empire and all that. There was a lot of animosity there, and that time bomb is going to go off anyway. I mean, who knows if that time bomb went off anyway? Because a lot of that war had to do with the rivalries between Germany and Britain.
Right.
But I mean, when does that moment come? Hopefully, it doesn't come. But it could come. Like, all right, for example, there was a really big moment that went really underreported last year, and it was around when we started doing this podcast when General Miller in Afghanistan almost got assassinated, and they killed General Razik, who was an Afghan police chief. Yeah. Do you remember that?
Yeah, I do, yeah.
If the Taliban killed I mean, we're still there and we're still at war in Afghanistan. However, I would imagine if they killed a U.S. 4-star general, well, damn, there would have been an escalation there, right? Like only I can imagine if there would be an escalation within Afghanistan if there was a general who was shot down. I mean, a general in the Afghan forces was knocked out, but I mean that he almost got whacked over there. So I don't know. You never know when that moment comes, and I think you gotta hope that it doesn't come. But I'm still pretty hopeful that. And I think that it's not going to escalate into a full-blown war. I'm saying that out of optimism. However, you never really know what's going to happen if some freak thing can happen. Yeah. Because totally. When there's guns involved and there's pissed off people, and when a country is really poor, and when there is this kind of low-level type violence that's been going on, eventually it can just get way out of hand. And hey, Iraq has its own problems right now. We're completely missing the point that there was a protest. There was an anti-Iran protest in Iraq only a couple of weeks ago that's still ongoing, and where Iraqis have been being kind of shot on the street like they're dogs.
Right. Like, and there's been anti-Iraqi government protests going on.
Yeah,
alongside of it.
It's. Don't you think that you're going to reverse that sentiment if that is happening? Because if by all means, I think that a lot of people are like, oh, CIA's in there getting that thing in place. Oh, CIA ops. Oh, pay it off. Like, you know how people are. I think that was, by all intents and purposes, pretty organic. When you look how terrible Iraq's economy is, it's something like, I don't have the exact number in front of me, but it has one of the lowest unemployment rates for adults. It's terrible right now. In Iraq, at one time, the Iraqis who are young adults right now probably don't know this time because they've only lived in horror for their entire lives.
Right.
But there was one time when Iraq was like, it was okay. Like, there was a high literacy rate. Within Baghdad, there was a high level of marriages between Iraqi Sunnis and Iraqi Shiites. And when there's a big diversity, when there is a lot of intermarriages, that's usually a sign that a society is not sick, or at least not isolated among each other. There's not as much identity politics based off either a sectarian or ethnic division that is like within the society. But that all exploded once the U.S. decided to kind of pull the pin off the grenade. So, I mean, I know I'm kind of going on a crazy rant right now. But I'm hopeful. I'm hopeful that it won't escalate, that this is just going to be a big game of chicken, and this is just the latest episode.
Right.
But, I mean, there's always that chance where a game of chicken can turn into a full-on collision.
Right. All right. Well, let's talk about something else then. Something else huge happened in the news, and that was the OPCW leaks. And, frankly, this is your area of expertise, so I'm just going to ask you a couple questions about it, and kind of learn a little bit right here on this show. So for those who aren't familiar, over the years, there have been a couple of major chemical gas attacks in Syria during the Syrian civil war. And a lot of them, if not all of them, have been called into question about whether or not, Assad had been gassing his people, whether it was like a false flag, whether it was, the United States, or whether it was moderate rebels or just straight up terrorists that were doing it. There were many such instances where, a whole lot of the evidence wasn't there. And not too long ago, this organization, the Organization for the Prohibition of Chemical Weapons, OPCW, we finally got, a look at their full report, and it doesn't look very good for what's going on. So, Henry, what the hell's going on here?
All right, I'm going to make this extremely simple because it's a lot of science stuff in it, and obviously I'm not good at explaining science, but I think people get confused when talking about the Syrian gas attacks because there is multiple major attacks that happened since the beginning of the Syrian war, and I don't think people really know which one these leaks are about. So I want to break that down first. So there was a war. There were many gas attacks throughout the entire Syrian war. Now, the major ones that everyone's team talks about are the Ghouta chemical attack that took place in 2013. That was the one that instigated U.S. or at least Obama going over.
Was that the red line?
The red line. That was the red line. And then there was the Khan Shaykhun chemical attacks that happened back in 2017 when Trump was first elected. And that was when Trump was being called presidential for sending missiles over into a Syrian facility.
Patriot missiles or whatever, 150K a piece. Yeah, I remember that.
Now, in the last attack that took place that was up in the air was the Douma chemical attack, which is the one that is being whistleblown right now. So, in a nutshell,
when did that happen? Sorry, you didn't mention.
These leaks have been coming out over the past 2 months or so that the let me take this back.
Well, the Duma attack, when did that happen?
It happened in April of 2018.
Okay, so very recently.
So it happened very recently. So these attacks, there have been leaks coming out, and there have been accredited scientists like Ted Postal from MIT who have been debating the evidence that has been brought out by the OPCW almost for about 6 or 7 months now, from when the attack initially took place. So this was actually something that has been ongoing, but now there's been leaks. There have been leaks from whistleblowers within the OPCW, the organization that's meant to investigate these claims, that the alleged chemical attack by the Syrian government in Dubra was certain parts of the report were doctored or even removed from the evidence. And all the evidence that was removed was stuff that could be seen as vindicating the Syrian Arab army of carrying out those attacks.
So who doctored it, though? Was it the OPCW that doctored it, or was it somebody else?
There was, the guy's name is Sebastian, I can't think of his name right now, it just escaped me, but there's been emails that have been released on WikiLeaks of him asking specifically for these specific pages to be be
And who's the Sebastian guy? Like, where is his affiliation lie? Who is he?
He works for the OPCW.
Okay.
Now this is already, in addition to a lot of claims from scientists, from rocket scientists, and I'm not saying that to be like, oh, it's a rocket scientist from
it's like literal rocket
scientists who study this stuff. That the evidence was debatable. What they're getting at is that the claims from the eyewitnesses who were Syrian rebels say that the canisters of gas were dropped from the air, and the only people who would have been able to do that were the Syrian Air Force. What some people seem to think is that the canisters were placed there and that it would have been impossible for those canisters to be dropped where they were. And there's no visual evidence that shows that these canisters were dropped. So it's kind of just like a witness, you're just taking a testimony from somebody who is anti-Assad and who has something against the government in the first place. So it's kind of a biased take. And whistleblowers have been coming out and saying that the OPCW has been doing a lot of foul play and manipulating the reports that have been used to justify the military reactions from Donald Trump.
Yeah, I was just going to ask. I mean, why would they want to doctor this thing?
Who knows? Just they want to fit a certain State Department narrative. They want to fit a certain narrative that they know that the U.S. State Department wants, that certain entities want, to justify a continued either low-level escalation there or low-level fight there. But I don't think that they want anything to vindicate Assad on any of those gas attacks because, I mean, frankly, it's been U.S. foreign policy across Republicans and Democrats to fund a lot of these rebels who were, a lot of them were bad. And it's embarrassing for the State Department, and there's obviously, there's foreign influence as well. And I don't want to beat the dead horse anymore, but it's a lot of factors that these people who have doctored this evidence are complying with, and also there's the risk. All right. So let's just be completely real. Being called an Assad apologist is a smear. Saying anything, because Syria is a enemy of the United States, so no one wants to be seen as taking the side of Assad, who's still in power, who's a bona fide monster as far as the mainstream media is concerned, and no one wants to go in that narrative and say there's something that's fishy, especially a guy who's probably not that political in the first place and doesn't want to get dragged into, people who are working for the OPCW, if they're in a science field, if they're not political in the first place, they don't want to get dragged into kind of like, a smear campaign or have their career ruined. So, I mean, that's really what I imagine. I imagined what happened is that, a lot of the people within the investigation, they kind of wanted to have an outcome happen because they didn't want their careers to be tarnished with coming with a bad outcome.
Right. Well, so I had to look it up because I was just so confused about this because, I'm trying to get into like the why something like this might have been, doctored. And so I looked it up. Evidently, OPCW is, was started on in 1997. It's the implementing body for the Chemical Weapons Convention. It's headquartered in The Hague in the Netherlands.
David Hogg.
It has 193 member states. So, at first I was thinking about it like, oh, this OPCW is like a United States organization or something like that. But this makes it a little bit complicated,
It definitely does.
193 member states, like I could see if this was some State Department shit, but I guess that's like just the open question.
Sebastian Braha, Braha, Braha is the person who was on the who ordered that documents be removed from the engineering assessment. That I'm reading off my friend Dave DeCamp's report on this, who writes for antiwar.com. I would definitely check out his stuff. He's been doing great work on it. The allegation was that these cylinders were dropped out of a Syrian government aircraft and were the source of the chlorine gas, but this engineering assessment points out different possibilities. I'll leave this article in the description below, but Peter Hitchens was actually writing about this about a month prior to it. Basically, he came, he had the scoop that I think that this OPCW official was named Voldemort. Like his nickname was Voldemort. He ordered a subordinate saying, please get this document out of the DRA and please remove all traces of any of its delivery, storage, whatever in DRA. Yeah, Voldemort. Voldemort is behind this.
Fucking Voldemort.
Do you want your answer right now?
He whose name shall not be spoken.
Hey, Alex Jones was fucking right. It's you know what it is. It's the wizards. Voldemort,
Dark Lord Voldemort.
vampire. Voldemort pedophiles are getting up together.
He's assembling all of his Horcruxes in Syria so he can go back into.
See, the way it works is that there's a Horcrux in 7 different places. All one's in Mecca. So we got to destroy that city. So. Yeah, it's very. I'll just leave it at this. It's very fishy, but I'll look at this and this. I would ask people to look at the OPCW doctoring reports, or the allegations, in the context of the Iraq War. So just always remember that the Iraq War, the 2003 U.S. invasion of Iraq, the White House officials used dubious intelligence to publicly make accusations that Iraq had nuclear weapons, a weapons program.
Right.
The Iraq War was a total war by deception. Right. So this isn't the first time this has ever happened. And one of the primary accusations was that Iraq secretly tried to purchase 500 tons of yellow cake uranium from Niger to refine and produce nuclear weapons. And the evidence that was used, that went around the State Department, and that was in a speech by George W. Bush, the evidence that was used, they were forged documents by defunct Nigerian leaders. So imagine if I said that I bought something from, your company or something. Right. If I bought this from Disney, and then the guy who signed the procurement slip and it was signed by Michael Eisner, the former CEO.
Right.
So he's the former
Walt
CEO,
Disney
right?
Himself,
Yeah. So I'm signed by Walt. Mike Eisner's not the CEO anymore, right? Am I completely wrong about that?
I don't follow Disney like that.
Correct me if I'm wrong. But if Walt Disney's a better example. So, that just look at it within the context that a lot of people are. A lot of this stuff is pretty shaky, and when it involves getting us into prolonged war, military conflicts, I would always question a lot of the mainstream narrative, especially when we've seen in the past that there's been some shady stuff going on, and no one really comes out and talks about it until it's politically popular to do it. People weren't talking about this during the war because they didn't want to be called unpatriotic in 2003. Now people are, it's open season on George W. Bush. it has been open season on George W. Bush until Trump was elected. Now there's like an attempt of people trying to sanitize his presidency for some bizarre reason. But yeah, it's weird.
Yeah, dude. So like, what do you think? What do you think the chances are that like, all right, the OPCW doctored some evidence on this one thing, you know, at the behest
they removed they removed evidence. I
Right.
think is the main thing is that they removed evidence that they didn't like that could
go against the American narrative, you know.
and all right, so you know that attack in 2018, that's the cruise missiles that were shot over into Syria, because the U.S. isn't going to be flying aircraft over there because the Syrians have they have very good anti-aircraft, including, I don't think they had S-300s at the time in 2018. I think those S-300s came in closer to the end of 2019.
In any case, the Russians were over there, and they had aircraft. So,
well, it wasn't just the Russians that were over there. They had other good anti-aircraft, enough where it would be dangerous for a pilot to go fly over Syria and take out a facility. So they had to shoot them out with cruise missiles, and it costs a lot of money to shoot cruise missiles. You know,
$150K a pop.
Yeah, like it costs a lot of money to shoot down those cruise missiles. So I think it could be seen as a way to further bankrupt or further kind of put Syria in an economic hole. However, again, you know, what we're doing in those countries, if the ultimate goal is to fight Iran, is to make sure that Iran doesn't get any more influence within the Middle East, man, come on, you're making Syria dependent on Iran, and then you're taking an organic revolution or an organic movement that wants Iranian influence to stop within the country, and you're kind of twisting that on its head. You're making the country a place that's safe for, you know, not a place that's safe for Iran. I definitely wouldn't use that word, but you're giving them more influence on a silver platter at the end of the day. And now you're seeing that Japan recently met with Iran. Rouhani was in Japan.
Right.
Eastern Asian countries they don't want there to be conflict there because they're the ones who are purchasing the fossil fuels from that region. So the whole world doesn't want this war to or this war to escalate anymore. They're kind of tired of it. And I think what you could really see, the big consequence, here's what I think the big consequence is that other countries, they really start forming together and they start exchanging oil outside of the dollar, which already happens, by the way, but that oil won't be traded via U.S. currency. Right. So, I mean, the sanctions, they only really empower the people who are within the government, at least at the time when you're putting the sanctions on place. Sanctions are empowering the Ayatollah in Iran. They're, you know, they see it as unjustified.
Yeah, and I was just going to say, clear up how it's empowering them, because that sounds counterintuitive.
They're empowering them because, yeah, sanctions are terrible. You can blame the sanctions on them, but at the end of the day, it's not the regime that's putting the sanctions in place is a foreign power. Mm-hmm. And people are patriots at the end of the day. They're going to fight for their country rather than invite a foreign country into or adhere to a client state. So, you know, Iran is a patriotic country. They're not going to look at sanctions in a positive light, at least from the country that is putting them on. And I think that's why you don't see, you know, a green revolution type thing where there are people who are like, okay, like this government actually really sucks. We should maybe change a little bit. Mm-hmm. Like, I'm a huge proponent of getting people just on video games or getting them on football or it's any sport, anything that can connect societies together via culture. I think that's the number one way for diplomacy is to either through sports, we should just fight all of our wars through Call of Duty. Yeah, through Call of Duty. I mean, one of the most, you know, famous stories in World War I was the Christmas truce, where guys out of the German trenches and British trenches, they got out and they're like, fuck this. And they started playing soccer with each other.
In no man's land.
Or football in no man's land. And, you know, they talked and they exchanged gifts, and it was like a day of peace. And I think things like that, just exchanges of culture and just so other people are humanized. Like, imagine the impact that it would have if Americans were playing Iranians in fucking Fortnite or whatever, you know?
Yeah. Doing their stupid dances and shit.
Yeah, doing their stupid dances.
Bro, I'm flossing.
Imagine the connection of you could do business with people from Iran.
Yeah.
If you have a business deal, like if you invented something on a website that makes the website more powerful, or really whatever you're thinking, you think of a better type of audio player. Let's just think in the realm of podcast, and an Iranian media company buys that audio player. Like, I think that's okay. But like, those aren't conflict. You're not exchanging weapons right here. This ain't an Iran Contra. This is, you're exchanging just voluntary services that are not meant to be harmful for other people. So exchange goods, trade, and embrace in similar cultural normalities. I think if you looked at, you know what's interesting? I think one of the biggest advocates for peace in the world, and he doesn't even probably understand, doesn't even know that he is probably PewDiePie. No, I'm serious. I think that PewDiePie, the Swedish YouTuber, is probably somebody who connects more people across the world than anyone else in society, in the entire world. Like, PewDiePie has like almost 100 million YouTube subscribers. PewDiePie, and people just bond over watching this kind of funky, kind of goofy Swedish kid like scream while he's playing Resident Evil, like, oh, like PewDiePie. And I've listened. I've I'm not like a frequent PewDiePie follower. However, I've like watched his stuff, and the guy seems like a pretty he's kind of aware of his responsibility, and he's down to earth enough where he doesn't like become like who's the really big douchebag YouTuber. Logan Paul. There's like brothers, right?
Yeah.
I forget the other one's names, but the one who did who stumbled across the suicide in Japan and was like videotaping it and like, oh, someone's dead body.
Jackass.
Yeah, what a piece of shit. He's not like that. He's like a guy who's like a level-headed guy who I think is probably kind of, I don't know how he feels about the popularity of that channel, but I mean, it has to mean something. And from what I've heard, he's not like some guy who's like a chauvinist who goes out and tries to swing his dick around and like be an asshole to people. He's like pretty private.
Like tomorrow, PewDiePie swings his dick around on live TV.
There's been a lot of stuff. There's been a lot of backlash against him because he sometimes makes some inappropriate jokes on his, or what some people deem to be inappropriate jokes on his YouTube channel. And there was a big scandal that made me cancel my Wall Street Journal account when it came out. The Wall Street Journal wrote this huge hit piece on PewDiePie, calling him an anti-Semite, on PewDiePie, calling him an anti-Semite because he had a YouTube channel. He had a YouTube video called, have you heard about this? The PewDiePie scandal where they were calling him an anti-Semite and he lost his show.
I didn't give it much.
I'll explain it real quick.
I know
we're going off the deep end right here, but he was on I think he was on Fiverr, the freelance website, website where we did our art for the podcast.
Right.
Fiverr, free sponsorship. Now we're going into a negative direction. So no, not a free sponsorship, but these guys offered to write anything down on a like a whiteboard or something, or and do a dance. So he was like making them write like random stuff, like stupid stuff on a whiteboard, and the next day they would show up and have a video of them doing it. And then he said, "Write death to the Jews," and they do it. And that's in the video. And he's like, oh, my God, I can't believe they did it. He was like, genuinely, he seemed pretty disturbed that actually, like that it seemed that they actually
did. It's pretty stupid of him to even, like,
he shouldn't have posted that. But in today's world, but he didn't I don't think he thought that people would like go after him as an anti-Semite, but he's not at all. He seems like a normal guy. He's not prejudiced at all. And it's just funny that people like that who are independent as far as like not connected to a mainstream media outlet are continuously attacked by dying outlets like the Wall Street Journal. And like, I don't really have like a connection to PewDiePie as in like I'm like a consistent follower of him, but like when I realized what was going on as far as a smear, I fucking said fuck the Wall Street Journal. I'm not because I used to be subscribed to it and it used to be like one of the papers I would read on a daily basis, and I was like, fuck the Wall Street Journal. This is a garbage publication.
PewDiePie.
All right. See that? All right. This is all right.
I got one more thing for you that might be fun to close on.
Oh yeah. What was that other thing?
Okay, so did you hear about the drones in Colorado?
I heard about that, and that was interesting.
Yeah, so
space wizard stuff.
It's crazy. So I like droning. I own a drone. I fly whenever I get a chance. Unfortunately,
I sleep with my drone.
Unfortunately, like you can't fly it anywhere in Manhattan because it's like restricted.
I touch
airspace.
my drone in places.
But anyway, so I see this weird. I'm also really into aliens, and that's something that doesn't come up too often on the podcast. But
Palestinians are aliens, right?
I'm not going there. Anyway, so I see this news article a couple days ago about swarms of drones in the sky over eastern Colorado, and they would come out at night from like 6 p.m. till about like 10 p.m. at night. And fly in like very distinct patterns, like almost like they were mapping something or like scanning something. And the crazy thing about it is that, people from like 4 counties wide were seeing these things. They're calling the police. They're like, what the fuck is this? And in this specific area, the FAA, the Federal Aviation Administration, the folks who control our airspace here, normally, like here in Manhattan, like I was saying, you can't fly here, right? It's like Class A restricted, for obvious reasons. But not in that specific area of Colorado. Like you fly around where the hell you want, right? And furthermore, there's not a whole lot of like, tracking capability of drones, right? Like they, you can register your drone and you can fly them around, but it's really hard to like see who the hell's in the sky, right? There's no like, signature. Oh, this is Danny's drone flying in the sky and where is it going and what is it doing? But the point is that they were seeing hundreds of these drones flying around in Colorado at night, and nobody knows whose drones they are or what the fuck they're doing, and they've been happening for like weeks.
It's a chemtrail conspiracy. They're sucking up the rest of the vacuums, and they're going to go. They're monitoring good places to hibernate after George Soros and his minions release super X turns everyone homosexuals.
Dude, it might be. I don't know. It's creepy as fuck because so some of the drones that they were describing it seemed like standard like drones you could pick up on in Best Buy or some shit. But other ones they were saying like has 6 foot like wingspan. That's a massive drone. That's a really big drone. And they're flying very coordinated, and they're flying almost at the same time every day, and they can't figure out whose it is. Nobody's claiming responsibility for these drones, and they're just flying around unimpeded, and they can do so legally, but it's like freaking people out. And like some people want to shoot them out the sky, and like it's like Colorado, they value their privacy out there, and they certainly are Second Amendment folks. So they're thinking about shooting them out the sky. The cops keep telling them like, no, that's illegal. You can't do that. It's nuts. And the fact that this has been going on for so long and still nobody knows what it's going on. Like some people are like, oh, what if they're doing topography or like, it's an oil and gas company, like, looking at the land, but that doesn't make a ton of sense because why are they flying at night? They should be flying during the day to do that.
Yeah, it's weird. You think it's just a troll?
It might be. And if it is, I love it. It's fucking interesting.
It's a very high effort troll.
Yeah, dude, because this is like a lot of drones and they're flying very specific flight patterns and they're still not getting caught. And everybody's like a little creeped out by it. It's not hurting anybody in particular that we know of. They could be flying chemtrails. Who knows? Right. But I don't know. I find it really interesting. And now the FAA is like, it's causing the FAA to want to like rethink some of the laws that they have for flying drones, which like sucks for me because like I like flying drone and I always abide by all the rules. But every time they make new rules, it's like makes it harder for me to go out and fly and, you know, have fun and shit. It's like people like these that, you know, scare people with their drones. It's like somebody's watching you from the sky. And I don't know. I don't really have a strong opinion about it, but I think it's fucking interesting. And maybe it's aliens, because you know it's totally possible. Did you hear about the something about, I think it was like the Denver airport has like a secret underground base or some shit like that, and it's like aliens or some shit. You ever hear about that one?
I did not hear that.
Oh my god! So
is that where they grow all the super chronic down there?
No, this is well before they legalized marijuana. Let me see. Let me pull it up. So yeah, it's like a Denver conspiracy theorist, like a theory about it, and that there's apparently some underground tunnels or bunkers or something like that, and they're keeping aliens down there and shit. So I actually don't know how far away Denver is from, you know, where these drones have been flying around, but I'd like to make the connection right now and say it's actually alien technology and they're testing it out and like they're making it look like drones, but really it's alien technology. So you heard it here. That's what's happening. Is
that your big prediction for 2020?
Yeah, totally. This is the year. Yeah, this is the disclosure year. We're gonna find out. Let me see them aliens.
God willing, take me, Lord Zeno. Take me. I want to go and learn about how. I want to learn the ways of Scientology and become level 3.
Well, you don't have to go very far for that.
I think it's level 3. You get Lord Zeno, right?
Yeah, maybe.
I forget. I gotta watch that.
9 or some shit like that. Tom Cruise is at Thetan level 9.
I thought it was. They keep on making new rules, so there's like more fees that you have to pay. Yeah. I think you're supposed to finish at 6, but then they're like, oh well, there's less people joining, so we got to make more levels.
Right.
Yeah. That's how they get you.
Yep. Yeah, it's like it's like downloadable content for games, man.
That's how they get you. Yeah, let's go screw over the Iranians with downloadable content. That's how you get. That's how you get your money back, or the money that you took from them back. When Obama signed the Iran deal, get it back. I have a scheme. We start implementing Fortnite there, and we wait until all the kids. I saw Fortnite be played for the first time ever in my entire life the other day as well.
Really?
Yeah, I've never played Fortnite before. My cousin was playing it, and it looked very fun. I can't play because I'll get addicted to it, but they. We implement some downloadable content games in Iran, and we have that going to like a fund to make up the difference of the money that the unfrozen money they got back because of the JCPOA. Ultimate conspiracy. Ultimate.
But they have to play it.
Job.
They have to play us for it.
They have to enjoy. They have to enjoy the fun content. All right, I'm not making any more sense. I'm starting to sound like I've had tea with Bill Cosby. I need to go. I need to go to sleep.
All right, man.
All right, guys. Thanks for joining us today for another episode. Rate and review the podcast as always, and we look forward to having another one. Peace.